Welcome to the coaching table. I'm Thomas Thompson, and I love helping leaders like you have the conversations that you're not having. Because when you have those conversations, you start to lead yourself well. And when you lead yourself well, then you're able to lead others well. And we're in a coaching table series right now I'm just calling Decisive Clarity. Our decisions define us. And that is so true for leaders because our decisions don't just define us, but they define the organizations that we lead and how we're going to move forward in this world. And so it behooves us to become very good at making better decisions, to make decisions that have clarity, to make decisions that have decisiveness to them. How do we do that? Well, I'm just sharing lessons I've learned and principles I've used from several decades of making decisions. And these are ones that I've used in my own life with my own family, but also with and among the teams that I lead. I try to implement those. And so today is number 6 in this series. You can always scroll down and hit the button and see the first 5. But today is key number 6 of decisive clarity. Use your compass. A while back, actually, when COVID was first hitting, there was a friend of mine who lived in Denver. I live in Colorado Springs, and we were trying to get together for lunch. Well, restaurants were all closed down. We didn't know what we were going to do, and so we came up with this idea. Hey, there's a park north of Colorado Springs called Fox Run Park. Why don't we both pack a lunch? We'll brown bag it. We'll meet at the park, and we'll go for a hike and have lunch and get to connect. Great idea. So I do what we all do now. I just turned over my navigation to Siri. And I said, Siri, give me directions to Fox Run Park. And she did. So I'm driving and starting to follow it. Well, I'm kind of driving down this 2-lane road in the middle of this forest. And I'm getting closer and closer. You know how Siri says you're a mile away. And then she says in a quarter mile, stop. And then walk to your destination. I stopped in a quarter mile where she said to. And I realized I'm just on the side of the road. And to my right, where she said I was supposed to go, she was saying for me to hike 3 miles to some spot to get out of my car and walk. Well, I realized the GPS has failed me. So I got in my car and I drove around for a while. And finally, I was able to locate this parking lot. I got out. My friend had pulled up right next to me. We lunch. Everything worked. I thought about that later, though. And I realized, Siri was trying to direct me to the center of this giant park. That wasn't helpful. But I knew where I was on the side of the road, and if I had just had a map and I had a compass, if I had a map that showed me where the entrance was, and if I had a compass that said go in this direction, I could have gotten there. Here's the principle I want you to hear. There are times as a leader when your GPS will fail you. Your GPS is your playbook. Your GPS is your experience. Your GPS is your procedure. Hey, here's what we do in these situations. And there are times when your GPS is going to fail you. These are the times when you turn to your compass. What is your compass? Your compass is created by the values that you hold to and that you've imbued into your organization. And sometimes you're going to have to go back to what are the values we hold. If COVID taught us anything, that was a time when everyone's GPS failed. We as a world were unprepared how to move forward into this. And at the same time, I loved seeing organizations that turned to their compass. A friend of mine owns a brewery here in town, and the GPS failed when he discovered we can no longer have people come into our brewery or gather around tables, and what are we going to do? They got creative. The value for this brewery is we don't just craft beer, we help people craft lives. And so they went back and they said, what do people need to craft their lives? Well, they need community, and especially at a time like this. And so they got super creative. They were one of the first organizations and businesses in town to come up with these little cabanas that they would put over these outside tables that would just hold a few people. And people could gather 4 or 5 together, and they could have a beer, and then they'd leave and they'd clean it down again, get it COVID prepped, and then another group could come in. They also came up with the creative idea of holding a drive-in movie theater in the parking lot. He put up a big screen, put up a movie, and was able to have food trucks come in and adhere to all the COVID protocols because they got creative and they went back to their compass. We're all, as leaders, going to face decisions outside of our playbook. That's when we go back to our compass. I'll tell you something too. There's no greater satisfaction as a leader than when your team makes a decision without you and it's the right one. Now, the win isn't that they made the same decision you would make if you were in the room. No. The win is they made the decision based on the values that you have agreed upon and shared as an organization. That's the win. And that's when you know you're really leading well. Here's your coaching table question for this week. How do my values or our values shape this decision? When you are facing a decision that you don't have a playbook for and it's unknown, bring your team together, bring your family together and go, wait a minute, what do we always believe is true? What's always important to us? How do those help us make a decision in this case? How do our values serve as a compass for this decision? I'd love to hear you talk to me a little bit about your thinking process as you're looking at making decisions with decisive clarity. Scroll down, click on my email, let's start a conversation. I'd love to encourage you and learn from you as well. And I'll be back next week with a little bit more on the topic of decisive clarity. But until then, you're always welcome at the coaching table.